Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT-06, and BT-06 offers us a lot of new and powerful cards to build new and exciting decks with, and it also gives us powerful tools to upgrade some current and existing decks. So today's deck that I'm going to be taking a look at to upgrade is going to be the Black Diaboromon deck. So the Black Diaboromon deck is kind of an interesting deck. He has a lot of baked in synergy, all revolving and centering around the fact that we want to have our Diaboromon in play and spawn and use the tokens that we're playing off of him in various different ways to do lots of powerful things. So that's not really changing, it's just what we could do with those tokens is ever changing and growing as we get more cards added to the card pool that interact with him. So we do get a new promo Kurisarimon that is going to be very, very powerful and adds new interactions to Diaboromon, making him even more resilient than he was before. So I think the Diaboromon deck is going to be a really fun and powerful deck to be playing around with in BT-06 still, even though it might not be as powerful as some of the other decks. So without further ado, onto the deck profile. Starting off with the Digitama, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Tsumemon. So this is the BT-02 version of Tsumemon, and this Tsumemon is going to be the DP booster. So it has a nice inheritable ability where when you have another Digimon in play with the same name as this one, then this Digimon gains plus 2000 DP, meaning if you have a Diaboromon spawn a Diaboromon token, then the main Diaboromon is going to get that plus 2000 DP. So we are playing lots of Digimon with the same name, so we could capitalize on the synergy to DP boost our Digimon, and from my experience in BT-05 playing around with Diaboromon, you actually prefer the DP boost over the card draw, just because your Digimon's card quality is rather low, so we need to shore up that weakness the best that we can, and we have lots of ways in the deck to already draw cards. So that's why I'm going to be running 1 copy of Tsumemon from BT-05, just because it's a nice way of drawing cards, but we're looking to increase our Digimon's DP so that they could actually, well, be competent Digimon, and the card draw is still nice to have when you need it. But I do think between these two Digitamas, there's really no reason to play any other Digitama. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Keramon. So this is the BT-02 version of Keramon, and this Keramon is acting as the primary draw engine of the deck. So because of this Keramon, we don't really feel like we need it to focus on the Tsumemon so much, just because we have this card to draw us cards, because his inheritable ability states that during your turn, when you play another Digimon with the same name as this Digimon, then you get to draw 1 card. This isn't locked to once per turn, and basically the whole idea is you're going to Digivolve all the way up into your Diaboromon, spawn some Diaboromon tokens, and then you're going to draw a card for each Diaboromon token that you're spawning. So that's just very, very powerful levels of card draw, allowing you to, once you see 1 Diaboromon, easily get through your deck to find various other cards that you need in order to interact with the opponent or push your aggression. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Chuumon. So Chuumon is just a necessary evil for the deck, even though he doesn't really interact with the deck in any real way, shape, or form. He's just there to stop the opponent from gaining memory. So memory blockers are very, very important because they have this powerful ability where during all turns, your opponent can't gain memory except by their tamer effects, so any options or Digimon that they're trying to use to gain memory, like in the memory boosts that all of the colors got in any previous way and new existing ways that they got to gain memory, this card will just shut off. So it really limits and locks them to just their tamers, and that's really important, so that way they don't have the ability to manipulate the memory to make powerful plays possible. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Keramon. So this is another Keramon for the deck, and this Keramon is also acting, I guess, as the deck's dedicated digger, where he has this nice on-play ability where we get to reveal the top 5 cards of our deck. Then we get to add 1 Digimon with unidentified in its type and 1 Arata Sanada, which is our tamer, among them into our hand, and then we get to place the rest onto the bottom. So not only do we have the other Keramon that's adding lots of additional card draw into the deck, but we also have this Keramon that is acting as the digger, so that way we could try to find the cards that we need to when we need to start looking for them. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Sunarizamon. So this is the promo Sunarizamon, and this Sunarizamon is really in the deck just for the promo Diaboromon. So if you are focusing on the promo Diaboromon a little bit heavier, then this card is fantastic. But if you're trying to focus on the other Diaboromons and play some other style of Diaboromon deck, then this card could be reduced or even taken out entirely. So this is, for all intents and purposes, a flex spot. It could really be anything you want it to be. I just feel like if you are using the promo Diaboromon, there is no better card to have as a card sitting on the field and an inheritable than this Sunarizamon because of his 2 abilities. So his ability native to him is your black Digimon with 13,000 DP or more will gain the piercing ability. So that's kind of why we want to run the DP boost Tsumemon, is so that way the promo Diaboromon is a black Digimon. He'll be at 13 just because the Tsumemon will boost him by 2,000, so that way it'll give him piercing. And then on top of that, he also has a nice inheritable ability where if this Digimon is black and has 13,000 DP or more, then it gains security attack +1, just adding to the overall aggression because the black Diaboromon is all about security attack plus, so what's one more security attack plus to add to his ability? Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Kurisarimon. So this is the BT-02 version of Kurisarimon, and this Kurisarimon is really important for the deck because it's what makes playing our Diaboromons hyper efficient. So it has this nice inheritable ability where during your turn, when you play another Digimon with the same name as this Digimon, then you get to gain 1 memory. So basically for this deck, what it equates to is every time you're going to be playing a Diaboromon token or spawning a Diaboromon token in some way, shape, or form, you're going to be gaining a memory back because you'll probably have this underneath a Diaboromon. So that's just very, very powerful because we could gain lots of memory because it's not limited to once per turn. So depending on what Diaboromon you're playing and how many tamers we have in play, you could potentially gain lots of additional memory to enhance and extend some of your plays, making them even stronger than what they normally would be. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Kurisarimon. So this is the BT-05 version of Kurisarimon, and this Kurisarimon is also really good because I guess it's almost like another win condition for the deck. So it's got 2 abilities, an inheritable and a native. Its native ability is a when digivolving ability where we get to play an Arata Sanada if we don't have one in play already. So this card wants to be played with the BT-05 Keramon because you want to hard play the Keramon to try to dig out the tamer, then digivolve into this Kurisarimon to play the said tamer that you dug out for. So that's just the whole intended line of play. It's not going to happen all the time, but it's nice that it's there. And on top of that, he also has a nice inheritable ability where during your turn, all of your other Digimon with the same name as this Digimon gain the Rush ability. So the Rush ability allows them to attack at the turn they come in, so any tokens that you're spawning will be able to attack as long as he's underneath a Diaboromon as an inheritable source. So if you spawn a whole bunch of tokens, you could basically use those tokens to machine gun the opponent's security away, and that's what's making this card act as an alternate win condition. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Kurisarimon. So this is the new promo Kurisarimon, and this Kurisarimon is actually really, really good. It's the first time I've ever seen Decoy actually be meaningful or relevant because it has the nice inheritable ability where during all turns, all of your Digimon that share the same name as this Digimon gain the Decoy black and white ability. So the Decoy ability basically prevents them from being deleted by card effects, which is just some form of protection, allowing you to use your tokens in a new meaningful way. So that's just really, really powerful because there is just lots of removal in the game. So having some protection is better than having no protection. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Mekanorimon. So Mekanorimon is going to be acting as the deck's dedicated blocker, and, well, he's just one of the best blockers we currently have in the game. His stats are already pretty good at being a hard play for 4 and 6,000 DP. Most of the time, we're not actually looking to Evo on top of him. We're just going to hard play him just because the Evo cost and the play cost are so close to each other. And he has the blocker ability with a nice bonus where during the opponent's turn, when this Digimon deletes an opponent's Digimon by battle and survives, then you get to unsuspend it, basically making it so that he could block multiple Digimon in a single turn, thus making him the best wall against a lot of the opponent's low-level Digimon if they're unable to clear Mekanorimon. Next, onto the ultimates, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Infermon. So this is the BT-02 Infermon, and this Infermon is a really good Digimon to be running because he has this nice native ability that just makes it easier to digivolve into our Diaboromons. So his ability states that when this Digimon digivolves into a Diaboromon from our hand, then we get to reduce the Digivolution by 1. So that's really important because it makes our plays really tempo efficient, and black usually isn't known for being the most tempo efficient of colors, so any way that we have to be tempo efficient is really, really good, especially paired up with some of our other cards to allow us to make some very powerful plays. So if we use this Infermon in combination with the Diaboromon from BT-05 or the promo Diaboromon, then he's going to digivolve for 2, and that's just really tempo efficient. So this card is just really good to just make our evolutions into our Diaboromon as cheap and efficient as we could possibly make it. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of WaruMonzaemon. So WaruMonzaemon is just the Monzaemon for black. There's no real other reason to play it other than the fact that he hard plays for 5 in case we get stuck and we don't see anything else. So hard playing him for 5 isn't the worst compared to hard playing some of the other cards, and the fact that he evos for 2 and having a very cheap ultimate that we could hard play and a good cheap ultimate to digivolve into just makes the deck run even smoother. And then the last ultimate of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Infermon. So I've been going back and forth on the ratios of my ultimates. This is just what I settled on personally. I think like maybe a 3-3 split between the Infermons might be a little bit better, just because this Infermon is still really important because this Infermon allows you to warp digivolve on top of one of your Keramons for 4. This Infermon is really good because we could use our Keramons as an evolution point to try to get into our Diaboromons. The only downside is the fact that it has really low DP and it's going to be sitting on the field when we warp. So that's the only big drawback, so that it gives the opponent time to actually be able to respond to us if we can't get into our Diaboromon right away. But the fact that we do have basically this warp potential is what makes him really good. And on top of that, he also has a nice inheritable ability of on delete. We get to play one of our Diaboromon tokens. So when our Diaboromon dies, he replaces himself with a token version of himself. Not really exactly himself, but you get what I mean. He replaces himself with a token, and that just allows you to keep bodies on board and be extra resilient, which with a whole bunch of removal, that is probably going to be really, really important, just ensuring that you have bodies to either A, aggress, or B, use as fodder for other abilities. Next, on to the Megas, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Promo Diaboromon. So because I'm running 4 Sunarizamons, I probably should be running 4 Diaboromon, but I'm taking a little bit more of a Swiss Army knife approach. But again, this Diaboromon is the main Diaboromon we want to be playing because of everything that that deck is doing and what we want to be doing with this card. So what this Diaboromon is doing is he has this nice ability where during your turn, for each Diaboromon you have in play, this Digimon gets security attack +1. So this does include himself, so he just natively has security attack +1, and then for every other token on the field, it just makes him even stronger, allowing him to punch the opponent's security really hard all at once. So this is why it's important to run the DP boosting Tsumemon, so that way he could be at 13, so he has an even higher chance of living through a lot of the opponent's security checks. So this Diaboromon is also black and not white, so that allows us to actually use the Sunarizamon to its utmost potential, and again, I do think if you have the availability to max out this card, then maxing him out and running the deck kind of like this is probably the most ideal way. But we do have some other Diaboromons in the deck we could be playing around with, and I think that the BT-02 Diaboromon, while he's not the best Diaboromon, he's still a very good card with the new promo Keramon because of his ability where during all turns, when this Digimon would be deleted by battle, then you get to delete one of your Diaboromons to prevent him from being deleted. So he basically has immunity from battle destruction. This also does include the security, so when he's battling with the security Digimon and he dies, or would die, then you could pop a token to basically give him pseudo-jamming, so that's already pretty decent. And then on top of that, with the new promo Keramon, we could use the decoy black and white ability to pop our tokens to prevent him from being deleted by certain card effects. So I think between the 2 abilities, he is just actually looking to be a very resilient Digimon, and he also has the upside of spawning Diaboromon tokens, which some of the other Diaboromons don't have, where when attacking, we get to play 1 Diaboromon token. So this is just an easy way to spawn Diaboromon tokens recursively and repeatedly to use for various abilities. And then the last Diaboromon of the deck is going to be 2 copies of the BT-05 Diaboromon. So this is just a Diaboromon that has a really nice one-and-done when Digivolving ability of just playing a Diaboromon token. So it's just another way to spawn Diaboromon tokens outside of our Tamer and outside of the BT-02 Diaboromon, just because we do need ways of spawning tokens in order to make very powerful and meaningful plays. So we could use those Diaboromon tokens with the BT-05 Kurisarimon, so that way we could give all of the tokens rush, and we could kind of create a wide board and swing all at the same turn, especially since now we have ways of making Diaboromon very efficient to be playing. So I do think between all of the Diaboromons, this is just a nice healthy spread for a well-rounded Diaboromon lineup. And then the last mega of the deck and the only level 7 that I'm going to be running is going to be 2 copies of Armageddemon. So Armageddemon is just a very powerful level 7 to be running because he has this nice ability to basically shut off a lot of the opponent's level 7s. So his ability exactly states that during all turns, the when Digivolving effects of level 7 Digimon don't activate. So most of the time when the opponent's going to be Digivolving, they're going to gain a when Digivolving ability to gain some immediate value off of trying to Digivolve into the level 7, because most of the time evolving into level 7s is a little bit on the more expensive side. So this having the ability to turn off when Digivolving abilities, for the most part, neuters a lot about what Digivolving into a level 7 is about. And then on top of that, he just natively has the rush ability because we could actually play him for 3 instead of 15 by deleting one of our Diaboromons to reduce his play cost by 12. So the whole idea is we're just going to try to spawn a Diaboromon token to use it to sack off into Armageddemon, but even if we don't have a Diaboromon token to sack off into Armageddemon, we could still evo him for 3, and that's still just making a very powerful Digimon on the field. Next, on to the options, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Iron Fisted Onslaught. So Iron Fisted Onslaught is, I guess, another flex spot of the deck. It could really be anything you feel like you want it to be. I just feel like Iron Fisted Onslaught is basically just acting as Black's Gaia Force, and Black needs some really good removal. So what this card exactly is stating is you get to delete all of the opponent's Digimon with the highest play cost. So basically you delete the strongest thing on the opponent's field, and that's just really, really important because Diaboromon isn't necessarily the best at interacting with the opponent's field. And then on top of that, it has the security ability of activating its main, so it becomes a threat even in the security. And then the last card of the deck and the only tamer of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Arata Sanada. So Arata Sanada is just the main tamer of the deck. You could split him up and run some other tamers in the deck if you wanted to. I just feel like we could be really memory efficient in the deck already once we start getting the ball rolling, that we don't necessarily need any other tamer. So what his ability is at the start of our turn, if we have an unidentified Digimon in our trash, then we get to gain 1 memory. So he's just going to sit on the field generically gaining us 1 memory because it's going to be very easy to put any of our unidentifieds in our trash. So that's just allowing him to be really good. So the more Aratas we have in play, the more memory we'll gain at the start of our turn. And this being a 3-costed tamer versus a 4-costed tamer makes him a little bit easier to play, and we have ways to play him for free off of our Kurisarimon. And then on top of that, what we're really playing the card for, outside of his nice memory gaining ability, is he has a secondary ability where during your turn, when one of your Digimon digivolves into a Diaboromon, then we get to suspend this tamer and play a Diaboromon token. So every time we're going to be digivolving up into a Diaboromon, we're going to be spawning more tokens, which is really important because we need to have our tokens on the field in order for our Diaboromons to be as powerful as they possibly could be. So we could use this in combination with a whole bunch of cards to do lots of very powerful things just by spawning Diaboromons. And then there's still just a whole bunch of other things that you could do in the deck, all depending on what you want to gain out of the deck. But there is other really good inheritable abilities that we could be using, not only just for the promo Diaboromon, but for our other Diaboromons, and Reboot is just that generically decent, making it so that the Digimon can't be attacked into. So Toy Agumon is a very fantastic rookie to run if you don't want to run the Sunarizamon, just because Reboot is that good of an ability. And then on top of that, we also have a new Digimon that we could be thinking about running in the form of Junkmon, just because his on-delete gaining 1 memory actually could be pretty decent depending on what the rest of your build looks like, because we do have the Infermon that has the on-delete ability of gaining a token. So we could pair up the two abilities to not only just gain a token, but gain a memory, and that could be pretty decent. Then we have some other unidentifieds that we could be running in the champion slot. So we do have Shademon to act as a good blocker that also could come out of security and act as a security Digimon. He also has the downside of not being able to attack, but the fact that we do have a security blocker that we could search for in the deck is pretty valuable. The only unfortunate thing is he does have 5,000 DP versus 6,000 DP, and he has a very high play cost, but outside of those downsides, he is just another very fantastic card to be running with lots of synergy for the deck. And then if you do just want to run another more generic blocker because of all of the Diaboromon support, then we also have the promo Kurisarimon, which I don't necessarily think is super great. You're probably just better off with Tsumemon at this point, but he does have synergy with the deck and could help the deck along, just because we could hard play him with a Kurisarimon on the field to trigger various abilities. So I don't necessarily hate the card, I just don't think we need the card. Then we do have some other very powerful ultimate level Digimon to be running, so if you want to run the reboot line, then you're more than welcome to. I don't necessarily recommend it, considering we just need the reboot on Toy Agumon, and relying on Toy Agumon to give everything else reboot is a little bit cumbersome, but regardless, we have Gogmamon as just another fantastic Digimon to be thinking about, because he has the main ability of Digiburst 1, which is actually really cheap in comparison to a lot of the other Digiburst abilities, where one of our Digimon gets plus 2,000 DP until the end of the turn, making our Diaboromons even stronger, or at least putting them in a more advantageous position compared to what they would be normally. And then on top of that, his inheritable ability during all turns, giving this Digimon plus 1,000 DP, just again adds to the overall power and resilience of what Diaboromons could do. And then you also have the promo Infermon, which is similar to Kurisarimon. You're not really looking to run this card just because he's an Infermon, although his on-play ability could be nice. I do just prefer running WaruMonzaemon as just a card to hard slam that's a level 5, but at least with Infermon, he does have synergy with the deck, being an Infermon, being an unidentified, and having an on-play ability of D-Digivolve 1, which could be pretty obnoxious and annoying to deal with, just reducing one of the opponent's Digimons by a stage. Could matter quite a lot depending on what the matchup is and if you actually have the memory to want to hard play this card for 7. And then you also have the Megadramons and Gigadramons to run. And then we also have other level 7s to think about, so if you are doubling down on the Black Diaboromon, you could think about extending him to some various other level 7s, just because they can Digivolve off of Black. I don't necessarily recommend it, because I think Armageddemon is just good enough as is, but it does allow you, with the Black promo Diaboromon, to run something like Omnimon Swart Defeat. It allows you to run Omnimon Swart, and it allows you to run Omnimon Alter S, and Millenniumon. So you do have lots of other level 7s you could possibly run, all depending on what your end build is looking like and how you could best support those cards in the deck to justify their position in the deck. And then we do have some other very powerful options to be playing with. We could run Final Zubagon Punch, because now we do have ways of putting our Diaboromon to 13, so that way we could gain the blocker and reboot and security tech plus ability, on top of the Diaboromon just gaining plus 3,000 DP. And then we do have other really decent removal option cards to run. We were running Ultimate Flare back in BT-05 just because it was like literally the only good removal card we had. So it's still a pretty decent removal card to be playing with now, just because D-Digivolve 3 and deleting all of the opponent's Digimon with a play cost of 3 or less is just that good. It prevents go-wide strategies, and the D-Digivolve 3 could be really, really annoying. And then on top of that, we have another removal card in the form of Gwalt Schwarmer. So if the whole idea for our deck is just to Digivolve into our Diaboromons and use our Diaboromon tokens, and keep those on the field, then nothing else on our field really matters. So Gwalt Schwarmer actually could be a pretty decent card, because it allows you to delete all of the Digimon in play with a play cost of 7 or less. Our tokens and our megas don't have a play cost of 7 or less, so this basically is almost a one-sided board wipe if you use this card correctly, and that could make this card very, very powerful and good for the deck. And then you also have another card to be playing around with it in the form of Parabolic Junk. So Parabolic Junk is a pretty decent combo card just because we could use this on one of our tokens, have one of our tokens swing, die, and gain us the 2 memory that way. Or we could use this with Armageddemon to put it on a token, sacrifice the token to Armageddemon, and then gain the 2 memory on top of reducing Armagedemon's play cost. So this is just another decent combo card to just let you do really powerful things, on top of which it also pairs nicely with the decoy ability, which we now have access to, and it pairs nicely with the BT-02 Diaboromon, allowing our Diaboromons on our field to be sacked to him if they're trying to attack into him, or if he attacks into the opponent's security and he, for some reason, loses the security check, we can delete one of the tokens to save him. And then we do have other tamers that we could consider playing. So we could consider playing Izzy just because Izzy is going to be a really good memory fixing tamer for the deck. And if we reveal all black cards when we play him, then we get to gain a memory, which basically makes him cost 3, which is just as efficient as Arata, and that's pretty decent. On top of the fact that we do have Izzy and Joe. Izzy and Joe is a little bit more of an awkward card to run. It's more for the early game rather than to mid to late game because he does interact with only black Digimon, but he does have a nice generic ability where at the start of the turn, if the opponent has 2 or more Digimon in play, not more than you, just 2 or more, then you get to gain 2 memory, so it's just another solid way of gaining lots of memory. And for our low-level Digimon being deleted because all of our low-level Digimon are black, we could just spend this tamer to draw a card, and that's just more card draw in the deck. But if you do just want a cheap and efficient tamer to play that also lets you draw cards, then you still have Takumi to be thinking about just because we're going to try Digivolving more often than not, and when we Digivolve we could suspend this tamer to draw a card, and we're not looking to attack with our level 3s, so the when attacking ability that they're going to be gaining of losing a memory doesn't really apply to us just because we're using our Digimon to Digivolve. But for the most part, this is just what a very classic, well-rounded Diaboromon deck looks like, and there's still, like I said, lots of ways you could change and customize the deck depending on what you want to gain out of the deck. So if you do want to focus more on the black promo Diaboromon, you're more than welcome to do so. I think that he's pretty good at being able to one-punch the opponent's security. Then you also could build the deck a little bit more defensive focused based on the BT-02 Diaboromon, just because we do have the new Kurisarimon to basically interact with him, making him a very, very, very resilient Digimon, not being able to be deleted by battle or by card effects. The only thing that'll be able to delete him is going to be not deleting effects. Outside of DP reduction, like putting him to the bottom of the deck or putting him back into the hand, and well, that's just still extra resilience that the opponent might not be able to deal with. And then on top of that, you could focus on the BT-05 Diaboromon just because you could play more into the rush style strategy, because this will spawn you an extra token on Digivolution, which could trigger various other abilities. So you could use this in combination with a whole bunch of Aratas and the Rush Kurisarimon to basically OTK the opponents through sheer amount of tokens. So either of these strategies are very, very viable, and you can mix and match which strategies you want to be running in the deck because it all just works because they're all based around Diaboromon synergy. And I do think that the deck is going to be a very fun and strong deck that the new Kurisarimon adds a lot new breath and life into, and this deck will get better with the Classic Collection because we know in the Classic Collection there's going to be a new Diaboromon line to support the deck even more. So I think this is a really good deck to pick up and play, and it's a really fun deck to play nonetheless. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.